The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
Kayla Schock had an appointment to get her hair done. She had her 7-month-old daughter, Uriel, with her. So rather than bring her along to the appointment, she asked her 65-year-old mother, Tracey Nix, to watch her. Tracey is a former school principal in Hardee County, Florida, and she had some lunch plans with friends, so she brought the baby with her. It was a warm November day, and when Tracey returned home, she went inside to practice the piano. Later that day, Tracey's other daughter came over with Tracey's 12-year-old grandson, and it was at that moment Tracey realized the baby was still in the car. Uriel died. Obviously, this is an absolutely horrible family tragedy. But what makes this story almost incomprehensible is that 11 months earlier, Tracey was watching Kayla's other child, 16-month-old Ezra. Tracey took a nap, and Ezra went outside and drowned in a pond. Now, there were 2 dead grandchildren on her watch. Everyone, including her daughter, was trying to understand how this could happen. So was law enforcement. And now Tracey has been charged with aggravated manslaughter.
It's going to be a tough hour. It's going to be a tough hour. We talk about this story. You know, when you first think about being a grandparent, wow, like being a grandparent is amazing. It's, you know, the whole circle of life, and now you get to share the joys of parenthood with your child and get to see your child go through all the things that you went through raising them, and you share, and every day that your grandchild has done something else, and you look forward to those visits and the times that you're together, and you get to have all the fun without all the responsibility as a grandparent, and it's just joyful. It's absolutely joyful. You ask any grandparent who's in the club, ask any of us in the club. It's amazing. Hold that thought for a moment. Now think about Tracey Nix with 2 dead grandbabies that she was watching. Within a year, within 12 months, 2 grandchildren she is watching die while she's watching them, or not watching them. The first child died in the pond. Tracey Nix was taking a nap, apparently. Little Ezra, 16 months old, you know that they can scamper around. They're walking, they're exploring. And like most children, very attracted to water, he drowned in the pond. That's devastating, devastating. And flash forward just 11 months later, she's watching her same daughter's, one of her other children. And that child dies an excruciating death inside of a hot car. We've covered hot car cases before. We've learned from experts what goes on and how hot it gets and the struggle. You're strapped in. There's nowhere to go. Don't want to think about it. But that's what this case is about now. One grandma, 2 of her grandchildren within 1 year, both dead because of her lack of attention. Now, I don't think anyone believes she did any of this on purpose. But what is going on here? How is this even possible? Scripps News Tampa, Kylie McGivern breaks down this story for us tonight.
Wauchula, Florida, a small town along Main Street in Hardee County. Population less than 5,000. Kayla Nix and Drew Schock grew up here and reconnected 5 years ago after what began as a high school friendship. They soon decided to have kids and raise their children where they had roots.
This was the plan. We were going to have 3 kids, and that, you know what I mean? That was our goal.
My mom was a principal.
Kayla's mom, Tracey Nix, now at the center of their family's story.
Here we are.
A story they're here to share.
It's really difficult to know that my mom is the one, you know, that broke his heart here. You know, my mom.
According to the complaint affidavit, on November 1st, 2022, Kayla was going to get her hair done and asked her mom to babysit. Tracey met friends for lunch, drove home, and forgot her granddaughter in the back seat of her 2019 Lexus with the windows rolled up. She went inside, talked to her dog, and practiced the piano. When one of her grandsons arrived, all of a sudden it came across her head that Uriel was in the back seat all afternoon. Her husband immediately began CPR. Temperatures in Wauchula that day reached 90 degrees. Uriel died. She was 7 months old.
To think of the last moments of her life as a mother is gut-wrenching.
A little girl. How do you forget a little girl?
After identifying his daughter at the hospital, Drew remembers.
We're out in the parking lot just trying to grasp out what just happened, and that it actually just happened twice in our lifetime.
Twice in less than a year. 16-month-old Ezra, Uriel's brother, also died while under his grandmother Tracey's care.
911, where is your emergency?
The little baby. The grandmother's out giving him CP. Is he breathing? No.
Okay, it was a pond,
Yeah.
and they're not sure how long the child was in the pond?
No.
Kayla and Drew had never seen the incident report, detailing how Ezra drowned in a nearby pond the afternoon his grandmother fell asleep. In the report, the detective wrote, a complaint affidavit for child neglect will be forwarded to the state attorney's office for further review.
I didn't know that they had ever attempted to file charges.
Kayla says she will never forget what a deputy told her.
I was told that unless I believed that my mom held my son's head under the water and intentionally killed him, that there is nothing else that they can do about my son's death.
If found guilty, Tracey could be sentenced to between 12 and 30 years in prison.
So then if I'm objective, she needs to go to prison. As her daughter, it kills me to say it. As their mother, I demand it.
There's a lot of levels to this story and things that we're going to talk about in this hour, but I want to begin with this family and the relationships and what they have now gone through, not once but twice. Joining me, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist, author of the book, The New Rules of Attachment, Dr. Judy Ho is with us. Dr. Judy Ho, I still can't believe that this happened. I don't think anyone can the first time they hear it, but it actually did happen. What are your thoughts, first of all, about what everyone is going through here in this family? Let's begin with the daughter and the son-in-law, who we just saw sitting on the couch there. For them, like, my mom is responsible for the death of 2 of my children?
Right. Vinnie, it's unfathomable what this family is going through, and particularly Kayla and Drew, because they've entrusted their 2 children to their grandmother. And there seems to be a recognition that it wasn't with malicious intent, but nevertheless, this happened so close together in time. Now they've lost 2 children. And I don't think there's a good answer for this daughter, because she wants that justice, she requires it, but at the same time, she has also talked about, I'm still my mother's daughter. I don't want bad things for my mother. There's the 5-year-old within me that just wants her to be okay too. So I don't think that there is a solution. It's a lose-lose solution for both of Kayla and Drew in terms of their mindset. Like, what are they even hoping for, asking for? Because at the end of the day, their children aren't coming back. What I found was interesting is that I don't think Kayla and Drew knew about the fact that the detectives had tried to seek justice for the first death, but that ultimately the DA, I believe, decided not to press charges. I wonder what it's like to also find that out on the back end after their second child has died, that this is something that the prosecutors have already been thinking about.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's thinking any of this is on purpose, but when you hear too, some people in the back of their minds like, well, what's really going on here? But it doesn't seem that that's the case. Let's take a listen to more of Kayla and Drew here in this interview, talking about the trust factor, right? Because one child dies in your care, and then they drop another child off, less than a year later. Let's listen.
After the death of your son, did you trust your mom?
No.
No, we didn't trust her at all.
I thought that if I could believe in second chances, and so when I was told that Ezra's death was an accident, some sliver child part of me thought, okay, good, I get to keep this mom, this grandmother, this person.
3 months after Ezra's death, Kayla gave birth to their baby girl.
There wasn't a moment to get a grip of the death of my son before there was the life of my daughter.
He's so cute. Kayla and Drew were protective.
The very, very minor amount of time that she saw my daughter was almost always supervised.
On her daughter's last day, Kayla says she knew her mom's plans.
Yuri was at a restaurant with other people that I knew and trusted.
Within hours, someone from the sheriff's office showed up at her home
and said that your baby is dead. And I said, I'm sorry, what? I know Ezra's dead. Why are you here? Why are you, like, what is this? No, Kayla, your baby is dead.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Let's start with the trust issue. And it seemed like that's what, it was an accident. I want to trust my mother again. I'm hesitant. She was pregnant at the time that she lost her first child, and now, just a few months later, brings life into the world again. What are your thoughts about how they're trying to understand this, and should they? I mean, I don't want them second guessing themselves, Dr. Judy Ho, because an accident, tragedies happen. I almost think like it was the right thing to let your mother have a relationship with your new baby.
Exactly, Vinny. I mean, I completely understand Kayla's sentiment. She was thinking, well, if I could trust that this was just a terrible accident, then I get to keep my mother in my life and also her as a grandparent for my children. And that's an important relationship and bond as well, right? And she didn't want to believe that perhaps her mother would not be more vigilant, especially after the death of Ezra. And also she stated that the day that her daughter died, she knew that her mother was going to be with other people. So I think that there was that feeling of reassurance that, well, it's not just my mom that I have to trust. It's also just the other people that I'm used to seeing. I know these people. Maybe they'll also have eyes on my daughter as well. So this is potentially a pretty safe situation. And also, it's just not possible, probably, if you're going to have a continued relationship with your mom and have her be a grandmother role, to completely have every single one of your interactions with your children supervised. It's not really practical. And I think over time, you want to be able to try to forgive and give that person a little bit of leeway. And it's just so unfortunate that for whatever reason, this grandmother just does not seem equipped to clearly be in charge of another human life. And it's sad that it took 2 human lives to learn that lesson.
Now, speaking of Tracey Nix, the grandma, let's listen now. This is audio of the body camera recording that was done at the scene. So this is at the scene. Police investigators are responding. The voice you'll hear is Tracey Nix. Let's take a listen.
I'm not going to be here when she comes up. Okay. I'm going to get my car and just go smoke. I need you to get a statement from you, though, okay? Are you okay to do a statement? Do you want to go back to the sheriff's office and sit with me? Would that be better? I cannot stay here.
Do you want to get in my car?
I cannot stay here. I have to go.
So is that okay? If you get in my car and just go with me?
I don't want to face it.
Okay.
I can't face my daughter.
And it's sort of hard to make out what she's saying, but she's saying, I can't face my daughter. Now tell us about Tracey Nix and what's going on in her mind, in her life, after this happens twice.
Well, I understand that she can't face her daughter, and she's probably having a hard time just really comprehending what she has done. And I know that we're saying that there's a negligent factor here. I don't know how far the discovery's gone or if there's been any evaluations of her. I wonder if there's any cognitive issues we should be aware of. Is she being forgetful because there's actually a cognitive decline of some sort that people have not seen or caught on to? I mean, there's a variety of reasons. And I think you can tell that she's very remorseful, but at the end of the day, her grandchildren are gone. And I don't know how she's going to sit with that guilt, whatever the outcome of this trial is.
Dr. Judy Ho, always great to have your insight and perspective. Thank you so much. We'll speak again soon. Wow, this is a heavy one. Okay, so now there's a trial. Now the trial is only for the death of one child, but it's not a case where she's being tried for the death of both grandchildren. As a matter of fact, the jury's not even going to hear or know about the first grandchild who died. So this is, for the jury's purposes, just basically your classic hot car death. And we've seen many of them before, but there's always particular circumstances. But the biggest one for this case, the jury doesn't know about. So what's the defense? Take a listen.
She took the child home. I think it's about an 11-minute drive. They were doing roofing at her house that day. She couldn't park in the garage. I think you'll hear her statement. She doesn't remember where she parked, but she parked under a tree because she couldn't park in the garage. So she was distracted by that. The dog was in the way. She was distracted by the dog. She got out. She forgot the child. She forgot the child in the car. There's no doubt about that. She's talking to her husband, and she realizes what's happened. She forgot. There's no aggravating factors here that make this culpable negligence as opposed to simple negligence, forgetting something. We all do that.
All right, let's bring in our think tank for tonight. Joining us, trial attorney, former police lieutenant Rick King. Also with us, trial attorney, fellow of the American College of Trial Lawyers, Ann Bremner, and defense attorney and former head prosecutor Bob Bianchi. Great to see everyone tonight. We're going to dive into this. We're going to talk about the 911 call. We're going to talk about the testimony of the daughter today in court. But let's start with your initial thoughts on this case and the defense that it's not a crime, and also the fact that the jury's not going to hear about the other grandchild. Rick, I'll begin with you.
So, Vinnie, I mean, obviously this is terrible. It's a tragedy. However, my feeling is that this is a case of simple negligence rather than culpable negligence, and I don't know that it's actionable in criminal court. As it relates to the fact that the jury's not going to hear the information about the other child, there's a rule that talks about irrelevance, and it talks about whether things are more prejudicial than probative. And in this case, I think because that situation is unrelated to this one, for the defendant in the case, it's more prejudicial. And less probative as to what happened in this case. And so therefore it's not going to come in. There are rules. I mean, this isn't like what's been said earlier. This is a lose for everyone. There can be no winner in this, and there can be no outcome that is positive for anyone. This is a terrible situation, but at the same time, my general feeling in this case is that's a grandmother and a mom and a dad who've lost their grandchild, and there's nothing that anybody's going to do that's going to bring that back. Least of all, putting the grandmother in prison. I just don't know that that's the outcome that's right in this case.
Ann Bremner.
You know, I keep thinking lightning doesn't strike twice, and I don't know that it was the right decision to exclude the other incident. This was a 90-degree day, and she said at some point it crossed her mind far later that the baby was in the car. I think it is. I think it's a case that is extreme, and I don't know of any other case. I don't know if anyone else does of a grandmother having this happen twice. I guess the Empire State Building gets hit more than once, but this way 2 times. I think criminal negligence is not that hard to prove. We saw that in the Potter case, the police officer that grabbed the gun instead of the taser. And, you know, we see it in a lot of different cases. And she wasn't careful, she was neglectful, and she's done it twice. And at what cost to that family? It's just a horrific, horrific situation.
Bob Bianchi, your thoughts?
God, if anyone being a prosecutor, I got to tell you, I handled a number of these cases. They are the most difficult, and in particular, cases that involve negligence of parents and grandparents, and kids wander off and drown in a pool, and people who leave children in a car. In fact, we had an assistant prosecutor in my office where that actually happened, and thank God somebody heard the baby screaming. People do things, forget things. I'm very interested as well as to what the mental health history is. I understand that the mom is grieving. I don't want to be difficult here, but I find it very difficult to imagine. Maybe it's true that the prosecutors in the first instance at least didn't call the family to discuss with them at least the basics of the case. And then leaving the child, the second child, with this person is problematic in my mind as well. And in the end, when you're trying to prove a case like this, Vinny, it's not just that you committed an act of negligence, as Rick had indicated, it's culpable negligence, which is a lot higher of a standard. And lastly, as a prosecutor, you have to look at the philosophy of what it is we're doing. It's deterrence and it's punishment. We hate reckless cases like this because the person did not go out there and intend for this to happen. I think we all agree with it with respect to this. So what are we accomplishing by putting this woman in jail for 30 or up to 30 years? And why wasn't the charge maybe a little bit less, like endangerment or just regular manslaughter? This is all the discretion calls that prosecutors can make. And I think reasonable prosecutors could have elected to charge this case or not charge this case. Ultimately, this prosecutor decided to charge it and leave it to the jury to make a decision as to whether or not her actions were so grotesque that it was actually a conscious disregard for a known risk to a child.
Yeah, and I think one of the factors in all of this, Rick, is the fact, even though the jury doesn't know about it, the prosecutor knows about the history, knows that there's another dead grandchild. So I'm sure that went into the equation in deciding whether to charge and what to charge.
I'm sure that it did, but at the end of the day, like for me, and I stand on my feelings about what it is, but for me, like this case and what we're talking about really is, and I'm going to read to you from the jury instructions, and just the very end of it, and it says, culpable negligence is consciously doing an act or following a course of conduct that the defendant must have known or reasonably should have known was likely to cause death or great bodily injury. And in this particular case, when we're talking about what this grandmother did, it wasn't something that some course of conduct that she followed. It was, and as terrible as and horrible and unconscionable, like you can't fathom that you would forget your grandchild in the back of the car. It was an accident.
Yeah.
And
because we've seen all different circumstances with hot car cases. Sometimes someone is distracted by alcohol or drugs or playing video games, believe it or not, or sexting with underage girls. I've covered that case as well. This is grandma coming back from lunch. Okay, Think Tank staying with us. We have more to talk about in this case. I mentioned the 911 call and the testimony of the daughter, the mother of the victim, the daughter of the defendant. We're going to get into that, plus coming up next hour.
Mother of 2, Ashley Elkins, has been missing since January 2nd. Investigators believe she was murdered, and they have a suspect who they say has been lying to them, Ashley's ex-boyfriend. Where is this missing mom? We investigate.
This is the Court TV podcast.
To check on my boys' 4-H pigs that they had at the time. I saw my mom and my dad doing something by my mom's vehicle, and I wasn't really sure, what it was. So I just, but I mean, it didn't take long at all to figure it out. I saw them get Yuri out of her car seat to where she placed? On the ground.
Anything else?
My dad started performing CPR.
That's Rebecca Tucker. She is the defendant's other daughter, the sister of the mom of little baby Uriel and little Ezra. So she testified. Now, she arrived on the scene. She was there bringing her 12-year-old to be watched by Grandma that day. And that's when Grandma remembered, oh my goodness, the baby's in the car. So she's the one who makes the 911 call. Let's take a listen.
Mom, my niece in the car. I don't know. I just pulled up that we need EMS, like, immediately. Please, your niece was left in the car. Is she breathing? I don't know what happened. I have no idea. I can't even fathom this right now. My nephew just... Can you get to her so we can answer some questions? No, I don't know what's going on. I can't. My mom is I can't. I literally can't. I have no idea. Talk to your dad if he's with your niece. My dad, it has her right now. My dad has her. Oh Lord, how old is your niece? Oh my God, this is really, really, really bad. Oh no. Oh man. Oh yep. My name is Rebecca. How old is your niece? I don't know. She's always getting my phone. Okay, I need you to be with her because I need to know if she's breathing. I need to know now. It doesn't seem like it. I have help on the way, but I'm going to stay on the phone with you while you're there. Oh, Lord. Okay. I have my 12-year-old son. Oh, God. Okay, how old is he? Is it going to be the baby? 8 months old. Okay. Take your cake, please, and I'm going to take you home. I can't be here for this.
Think Tank still with us, Rick King, Ann Bremner, and Bob Bianchi. And as I'm listening to all of this and watching this, and I feel like these are just nice people, and this is something really bad happened. And sometimes I watch our criminal cases here and I get angry. I'm not getting angry here. I'm just like, this is heartbreaking. What are your thoughts about how that translates to a jury and what it means?
Well, I think it will translate, and I'd probably be the minority juror that would want to convict her because she reasonably should have known that child was in the car. It's not even like a normal parent that's dealing with children every day, like, oh, I've got my groceries, I've got to answer the phone, I've got other children, very distracted. This is grandma who's already had one child die under her watch, and yet she's saying it just came over my mind when I saw a 12-year-old that I had the baby in the car. I can see a jury feeling the way you do, but I look at her and I think, like I said, lightning doesn't strike twice under 404B evidence. I think that other incident should have come in. It goes to intent, lack of mistake, and other issues like that. And look at her. I mean, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And it's simply that she reasonably should have known. And you know what? She should have. A reasonable person would know. She's distracted by the dog. I mean, she's like, she doesn't really have an excuse here. That baby was in the car and died a horrible death. So did the other baby, died a horrible death. Twice. 2 babies dead.
Yeah. With the hot car cases, and obviously it happens every year. It happens in Florida a lot. There's such a simple solution for anyone driving that car. Left shoe, put it in the back seat with the child every time. You will never walk away from that car without the child because you're now walking with one shoe. Just put the shoe, left shoe, in the back. Bob, I want you to take a listen to more of Rebecca Tucker's testimony here describing the demeanor of the defendant in this case.
Did you observe your mom?
I did. while my dad was doing CPR, she went around to the other side of the barn, and while I was trying to figure out what, excuse me, what had happened, I walked, around to where she was, and that's where I saw her on her hands and knees and was, just completely, pale and breathing really heavy, and I don't know. It all happened so quickly.
Was she gagging?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she threw up.
And was she breathing heavily?
Yeah.
Did you call that hyperventilating?
Yes.
Okay. Could you see her eyes?
Yeah, they were huge.
Okay. I assume that was a pretty traumatic experience.
Yeah.
All right, Bob, what are your thoughts about how the jury, now the jury, like Ann is in a different position, right? Because she knows about the other grandchild. The jury's not going to, so they're just hearing this. As I hear this, I hear nice people, nice family, they're close, they help each other out, sisters and mom and everybody, small town. But do you think the jury gains sympathy? Where does the sympathy go? Does it go to the defendant, or does it go to the dead child?
I think it's going to go to the defendant, but Vinnie, I think something that's really, really important in terms of what you're talking about, jury nullification potentially here or not, being able to find that there's a conscious disregard, which is more than just negligence, it's a conscious disregard, would be how the mom and dad testify. I think that that's going to be very, very important, because in most cases, the mother, the daughter and the husband of the daughter would not want this case prosecuted. We just listened to a video clip where the mother is saying that the mother of the child is saying that her mother should be held accountable for this. And I think that that is going to be, if that comes across to the jury, which I'm sure it will, is going to be extremely important. And to Ann's point, this was a really close call on the 404B evidence with respect to admitting the evidence of the previous child. The defense is going to have to be extremely careful when they're cross-examining witnesses, in my opinion, or if they decide to put the defendant on the stand, about opening the door where the prosecution is going to be able to say, now we should be able to cross-examine on that first instance. So stay tuned for this particular issue here, because I think it's going to be very hard for the defense not to trip over that line and allow that evidence now to become relevant.
So Rick, is this a case about overriding emotions and sympathies? Is it about facts? Is it about the law? What do you think this case is about for this jury?
So the defense attorney in this case, when he gave his opening statement, it was probably about, I don't know, it might have been, if it was 10 minutes long, I'll be shocked. It was very short. And what he said to them was, listen, this was an accident. This was simple negligence, not culpable negligence. And for me, and to Mr. Bianchi's point, and this is where I'm hung up. He said conscious disregard. But the term in the jury instructions, and the defense lawyer mentioned, hey, you guys are going to get the jury instructions when you go back. You're going to get to read them. And this is the part that gets me: conscious indifference to the consequences. They have to prove that she was consciously indifferent to the consequences of her actions. And I don't know. And for me, I'm hung up on the law. For all of my clients would tell you, I get hung up on the law. I feel like under Florida law, that is not, they're not going to be able to reach that place. I just don't. I feel like when they read those words, if that comes across, that's what's gonna hold. Now, again, Mr. Bianchi just said something to me that really, he got me, because what he said to me just now was, they might trip on 404B evidence. And I didn't think about that until he just said it. And that's going to be huge. If they trip on that, and they're allowed, and that other, the information about the other child gets to come in, that's going to be significant, and it's going to be difficult not to trip on it. It's going to be hard, and so for me, that's the part of this case that you got to watch out for.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is that you feel that the defense attorney really has to keep that jury focused on the law. And, I think prosecutors will talk about what happened to that child and what that child went through and how you could forget. Now, Bob, you mentioned the daughter of the defendant, the mother of the victim. Well, she testified. We're going to show you that testimony when we come back.
The Court TV podcast will return.
To my office, we began the workday. I remembered I had a hair appointment, and I reached out to my mother at that point and asked if she was busy. And she responded that she had a lunch with a few of her friends. Those friends are people that I've grown up with my entire life. So I certainly felt comfortable in that circumstance, allowing my daughter to go to the restaurant with my mom. That restaurant was pretty much in the same block as the hair salon that I went to. So I knew I would be nearby.
And what's interesting, as she describes that, the jury doesn't know that another one of her children had died in the care of her mother. So why would she be so concerned? I wonder what the jury's thinking about that. Why would she be so concerned about dropping the baby off with grandma? I mean, grandma raised two girls, right? Grandma knows how to take care of a baby. Let's listen to more testimony of Kayla Nix as she describes finding out. Remember, again, this is for the second time that one of her children has died while her mom was watching.
Why did the officer show up at your door?
He showed up at my door to notify me that my child was deceased. That his words were, "Your baby is dead. Your daughter is dead. Your child is deceased, and we need you to come with us. I have to identify the body."
Okay, where did you go?
I got in the vehicle with the sheriff that came to get me. They did not believe that I should be driving, which I agree. And he took me to the Florida Advent Hospital in Wauchula.
And you said you had to identify Yuri?
Yes, I did.
And you saw her?
I was not with my husband in that moment, and so as soon as we found each other in that parking lot, which was sheer insanity, then we went in together to look at our daughter and identify her body.
Oh, all right, Bob Bianchi, your thoughts about mom's testimony, and that, I mean, incredibly emotional.
Yeah, it's terrible. And look, nobody disagrees that this is not a tragedy, but the fact of the matter is, I hate to be direct and cold-hearted and legal about this, but the law does not penalize accidents. And whether you call it conscious disregard, which we do in Jersey, or conscious indifference, as my colleague is stating here, the fact of the matter is, when you are doing a conscious disregard or conscious indifference to the value of human life, in most cases, Vinnie, that's because you affirmatively do something that a reasonable person would have perceived could have caused serious bodily injury or death. It's even harder for prosecutors, however, when you're trying to show a conscious indifference or a conscious disregard for the failure to do something, which is the failure to take her out of the vehicle. It is a very hard case from a legal standpoint, I agree. And that is what the defense is going to do. And if they're smart, they're not going to get into cross-examining her or cross-examining any witness. They're going to try to limit the medical testimony. They're not arguing about the cause of death of this child, and they're going to make their case in summation and argue that this does not rise to a criminal violation under Florida law, yet it is a tragedy, but not a crime.
So, Ann Bremner, take out of the equation, because the jury doesn't have it,
Right.
the prior grandchild's death while grandma was watching. What are you seeing and hearing from the two sisters who have testified, from the audio?
Well, I first always think that no parent should bury a child, and they should never have to do that twice. But I know we're not talking about the first one. But you're also talking about knew or should have known with the culpable negligence. I just defended a police officer in a murder case. It was based on negligence. I mean, there is criminal negligence. We had the Kim Potter case, like I talked about before. And the fact that she did all these things and then says, oh, it just came across my mind that I had the baby in the car. She knew or should have known under these circumstances. And I just don't see how she's going to come across to a jury in this case as somebody that acted in some way that was reasonable. I just don't see it. And she's grandma, for gosh sakes. I mean, that's her grandchild. And the baby was in the car for how many hours in 90-degree weather outside? I mean, I'm sorry. I know I'm the tough one in this panel. I was a prosecutor. But I just don't see it. And Vinnie, remember the Michael Peterson case, talking about prior acts, the staircase case, that there was the first wife fell down the stairs and then the next wife falls down the stairs, and that evidence came in. It kind of reminds me of that lightning doesn't strike twice. But we're not talking about the first case, I know.
Right. Well, I mean, the jury hasn't heard about it, and they likely won't.
Yet.
Rick, so looking at all the circumstances here, I mean, emotional testimony from the victim, which is the baby's mom. The baby's mom testifying. I mean, it's heartbreaking on the stand. Is the jury going to want to hold someone responsible?
Vinnie, I can't answer that question. And I hate to be in the position where I oppose Ann Bremner because I love her. However, I'm just of the opinion, and I agree with Bob that, that the burden that the state has in this case is difficult. And if you just take real quick, if you just take in what the defense lawyer did with his statement, his opening statement, he's going to be small, he's going to be concise, and he's going to be short. He's going to do just what Bob said.
All right, Rick King, Ann Bremner, Bob Bianchi, thank you all so much. When we come back, something else you need to know tonight.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, coming up next, only on Court TV. This week on Opening Statements.
Did Natalie Cochran kill to cover up her financial crimes? We'll get you set for each day's proceedings in the Ponzi scheme murder trial.
Opening Statements with Julie Grant. Weekday mornings at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. What do we have? Guilty as charged. Those are the words of Caitlin Clark's accused stalker, Michael Lewis. This is his mugshot. Let me show you him actually say that as he entered the courtroom.
Morning, Mr. Lewis.
Guilty as
No, sir.
Well, he may be guilty, but not yet. A formal plea of not guilty was entered by his attorney, but that's Michael Lewis. He's accused of stalking basketball superstar Caitlin Clark. Let's take a look at the screen, folks. We have a missing child who needs your help tonight. Please take a look. This is Nin Ong. Nin is missing since December 29th out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, just 15 years old. If you see Nin, please make a call, make a difference. You can call 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or call the Fort Wayne Police Department in Indiana. That number is on the screen. Let's see if we can get Nin to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime straight ahead. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids.
There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.